Hello food fans, welcome to Greg's World Kitchen. This week I'm doing a Chinese dish as requested by Patricia. Thank you, Patricia. She wanted to know how I do my crispy pork belly. I use the Asian method and it's Chinese crispy pork belly, otherwise known as Siu Yuk. It's not yuck, it's yummy. Okay, let's get going. Okay, I've just removed the pork belly from its packet. You need to make some holes in it. I use one of these. This is available on Amazon. It's good because it's got this little, as you can see, it's got that thing there. It stops you going too deep into the meat. You want to score it, but you don't want to go too deep. You don't want to go into the meat, otherwise the meat juices will come out, go onto the skin, and it won't crisp up. What you want to do is do it deep enough so you just go into the fat layer, and then when you put it in the oven, the fat will render, come out onto the skin. It will fry the skin and make it bubbly, and that's what we're after. So I'm just going to do this for a bit. Okay, you want to bring a pan of water to the boil, just water, nothing else. Then take your pork belly, place it in the water. Ow! Place it in the water without putting your fingers in there, and try and get all that skin submerged the best you can. Okay, now let that simmer covered for about 10 minutes. This will soften up the skin, help break down the collagen. Meanwhile, we'll make the marinade. We want approximately a tablespoon of shaosing rice wine. I'm doing this with one hand, so excuse the mess. I missed a bit there, so a little extra. We want a teaspoon of salt, this doesn't have to be exact. A teaspoon of ginger powder, a teaspoon, or about half a teaspoon, you don't want it too strong, of white pepper, and finally a tablespoon of 5-spice powder. It goes in there. And I'll get a teaspoon and mix. Give it a good mix. You're looking for a paste. You could probably do with a little bit more rice wine. Yeah, that's looking better now. And not forgetting, of course, to clean up after yourself. Okay. Right. The next stage will be taking the pork belly out of the boiling water. Got about 4 minutes to go on that. It's just simmering gently. Okay, this had 10 minutes. Just gently fish it out and lay it on a rack to cool for at least 10 minutes, yeah? So just let that cool. The pork belly's had the 10 minutes and it's cooled down. That'll be easier to poke some more holes in it, which you do now. Yeah, that's definitely a lot easier. Like I say, be careful you don't go right through to the meat. Okay, you turn it over. Now you brush on your marinade. Actually, before you brush on your marinade, you want to make some slits. Not too deep. I'm trying to film this with one hand. Don't go too deep. Oops, come back. Yeah, dragging action is probably better. How deep? Looks like you don't want to go very deep with this. You just want enough to let the marinade soak in. As you can see, that's not cooked yet. That'll be baked in the oven later. So take your marinade and brush it on and get it in those cracks. Some people put sugar and sesame oil in their marinade. I don't, and here's why. Sugar will burn. Yeah, at the temperatures this is going to cook at, the sugar will probably burn and you'll end up with dark carbon on the underneath, because it's going to be cooked at 200 degrees in a fan oven. And also for the same heat reasons, I don't put sesame oil in, because sesame oil's got a low smoke point and it tastes pretty horrible. If you overheat it, you end up getting something that tastes a bit like diesel. Okay, that's the marinade. In this bowl, I've got enough white vinegar to just come up to the skin line. You don't want to go beyond that. I just want to rest the skin in the vinegar. And how long to rest that? 2-3 hours maybe. And then we'll come back to it. The point of adding the vinegar in is it's changing the pH of the skin. It also helps to break down the proteins in the skin and help it make it more crispy rather than chewy. So that's the reasoning behind that. I'm doing it with acid, vinegar, but the same method also works if you go the other end and go alkali. You can use a bicarbonate of soda to do that as well if you haven't got any vinegar. Okay, so I'm just going to let this marinate for a bit now. I meant to say put it in the fridge, marinate it in the fridge, okay? Right, this has had 3 hours soaking in the vinegar. What you need to do now is tip off the vinegar. I'll just show you that quickly. Well, I'll show you it after I've tipped it off because I need 2 hands. Well, once you've poured off the vinegar, you need to pat it dry, because for crispy pork you need to get that skin as dry as possible. You can see the vinegar still coming through. Just keep doing that as much as you can. Get as much off of that as possible. Okay. So yeah, this piece of pork I got from the supermarket and they've pre-scored it. You can see that line down here. Now, unfortunately, that means that when we put the salt on, if you use small salt crystals, that salt's going to get in there and it's going to make it too salty. So, I'm just going to get another piece of paper. What you have to do, if that's the case, you know, you've got the big slashes in it, is use a coarser grade salt. Don't use that. That's the fine table salt. That'll just get in the holes and make it way too salty, as I've found out before. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use some of this coarse rock salt and just scatter it over the top. I want to get as much on the skin and as little in the bowl as possible. Just spread that out a bit. Trying to cover as much of the skin as possible. Need a bit more. And this salt will help pull out the water in the skin, making it super crispy. Well, it'll be super crispy once you cooked it, of course, in the oven. Try and get some of this out of there. Bring it onto the sides. Some of it's going to fall off, that's inevitable. Okay, what I'm going to do now is take that and put it in the fridge overnight, and that salt will draw out the water, rub it off, and then we'll prep it to go in the oven. But for now, just stick it in the fridge overnight like that, uncovered, because the cold dry air will also help dry it out. See you at the next stage. Okay, the pork's been in the fridge overnight for about 12 hours. What we need to do now is scrape this salt off. You see how much liquid that's pulled out of the skin there. See, that's wet. Scrape all this off. Lift it out. The marinade's soaked in nicely there. Still some salt on there. I'm going to scrape the rest of that off. Just move that out of the way. You can see how much liquid's come out of there, look. Now you need to dry off that skin. Loads of moisture's come out of that. Perforations are a rip-off. Just really dab it. Salt. See, the salt's got in those cracks. It's been scored. You don't want it too salty. Right, what you need to do now is make a little foil tray, which I'll show you in a second. You want to put your pork on the foil, and you want to build like a little box for it, double thickness. Fold that over like that, bring it up to the sides. You want to come up a little bit above the skin. I haven't done that very well, have I? Let's try that. Again, a little tricky with one hand. Fold that over, fold it up, fold it in. Tight as around, sorry, as tight around the edge as possible. Because I've just taken this out of the fridge, so ideally you want to leave it to come up to room temperature, but for food safety reasons don't leave it more than an hour. I've just put my oven on. Oops. Back into shot. Yeah, I've just put my oven on. It's a fan oven. I've put it on 180. And we'll be cooking this for an hour at 180 fan or 200 conventional. Trying to work out if it needs more salt. I'm going to put some more salt on that. The reason I'm going to put more salt on is it still feels a bit damp. I've seen some techniques where they mix the salt with egg white, but I can't be bothered to do that. It's a bit of a faff. You just need to spread that salt evenly. If you can, press it down a bit. So the whole point of this is just to draw out any excess moisture. And it will go into the oven like that when the oven's up to temperature. Okay, that's been sitting there for an hour. Just goes in on the top shelf, although as it's a fan oven it doesn't really matter. Right, this has had an hour. Pack. Scrape, scrape, scrape. This can be a bit of a pain, it takes a while. Okay, right, what I want to do now, if that's cool enough, slide that onto there, get some tongs, that out, pop it on there for a sec. I'll discard this. Place. This is tricky. Pop this back onto the rack. Get some paper towel. And guess what I'm going to do? Meanwhile, when I took this out of the oven, I've cranked the oven up to, well, it's a fan oven, so I've cranked it up to just over 200. A conventional oven, you're looking at about 225. And that's going back in. So, this is what it looks like after half an hour in the oven. You're getting some bubbling, but not really as bubbly as you see in other videos. So what I'm going to try and do is put the grill on and put it under there. Now, word of caution, with the grill it gets very, very hot and will burn easily, so you have to watch this like a hawk. Okay, that was the timer. So I've just put the grill on. I'm going to give it a few minutes to heat up. You see it's starting to bubble now. That's what we want. We want it to be bubbling. But we don't want it to go black. Come back in a minute. See the smoke coming off of it now. But we're getting some really nice bubbling. Just got to watch it that it does not burn. Because if you get some bits starting to go dark before the other, you can always cover it in a bit of tin foil. Right, you can see it's just starting to char now, so I'm going to pull it and take it out. Yeah, as you can see, that's just starting to char. We've got lots of nice bubbles, and that's what we want. But you don't want to let it go any more than that. Okay. Right, all we need to do now is let that cool down for about half an hour. If you try cutting that now, the fat's still quite, what's the best way to describe, molten, I suppose. So if you try to cut that with a hot fat layers, it will just all slip and fall apart. So yeah, just let that cool for half an hour. Right, this has had over half an hour to cool down now. You could cut it that way, but I find if you cut it down with the skin side down, you lose all your bubbly, because the bubbles on here get squashed and you lose them. So in my experience, best thing to do is cut it sideways. See if we can get that in shot. Pull them out that way. And then you can just cut them into bite-sized chunks, like so. in short. And there you go. Now, taste test. Oh, there you go, you can see. Nice and crispy. Let's see what it's like. Mmm. Mmm. First thing is the flavour. You can taste that 5 spice. It's lovely. It's not overpowering. But the crunch, just this bit here. Mmm. Mmm. Try a slightly different bit. It is quite salty. You'd expect that. Yeah, it's a perfect balance of meat and fat and crispy skin. Mmm. That, my friends, is perfect. Well, this one was for you, Patricia. Hope it works. Of all the different techniques I've tried, that's probably the closest to perfection. Like you said, it can be a bit hit and miss, but today it worked. Normally I don't soak it in vinegar, I brush it on, but it seemed to work. I might try it again using a different technique and compare that. But for now, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And see you on the next one.